There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good evening. Welcome to the Chelmsford Planning Board meeting of May 25th, 2022. Some quick notes on how we'll handle this. We do have a Zoom connection available. Information is on the website, and you can also dial in 929-205-6099. Note that that's being offered as a convenience. We'll take testimony and discussions and what have you through that, but if for some reason the technology is to go poof in the middle of the meeting, we won't stop the meeting because of it. That said, on the agenda, first item on the agenda is administrative review, Nabnasset Road, request to release lots. Do we have anybody here representing that? Evan?
Somebody here. Why don't we,
I can hold that for a couple
move forward
minutes.
and come back to that?
Okay, we'll come back to that one. Second item, the CEIOD applicability for off Billerica Road. There's been a request to continue to June 8th.
Motion to continue it.
All right, thanks, Mike. Got a motion from Mike to continue? Second from, okay. We're in business. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Let's see. Third item up is a new public hearing. This is for 47 Chelmsford Street. You'll recall this is the situation where an apartment is proposed for the second floor of a commercial strip. And we will have a public hearing on that tonight. Is there anybody here from the proponent?
I don't know if that mic is working.
Yeah. Give that a tap, see if it's alive. There you go.
Got it? Okay. Casey Ferrera with Howard Stein Hudson. Evan, do you have the plans?
Yep.
Okay.
We have references to them here.
Oh,
Do we have a way to put them up?
God. Yeah, I just need to get reconnected here.
Yeah. I'm not having a lot of luck viewing this on the tablet.
Why don't you begin the presentation and I'll...
Okay, and then we'll get it up as soon as we can. Go ahead.
Sure. So I'm Casey Ferrera with Howard Stein Hudson here on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Carano. So we are submitting a site plan review and special permit. The special permits will be for 50% reduced parking within the VCOD, not having a 5-foot buffer strip of parking or of landscaping between the road and the parking, and as well as a non-conforming parking space. The existing building is a 2-story commercial building. It has historically had a flower shop and other small businesses. The site is currently paved practically from end to end. We do not propose any changes to the building itself other than the use. The use will become a commercial retail on the bottom floor with a single apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment above. The existing parking spaces are very non-compliant with widths, angles, drive aisles, We have proposed to restripe the parking lot to create 9 conforming spaces, with the exception of 1 being 16 feet long rather than 19 feet long. This is pretty in conformance with a typical compact space.
Yeah.
That 1 parking space will be on the left side of the site plan there with the label C. We have also decided to take any area of the site that is not required for parking conformance and create landscaping to break up some of the sea of pavement. We also include a bike rack on the Wilson Street side of the site. The reason we need the special permit for the no landscape buffer with head-in parking against the building along the right-of-way is because the site uses most of the curb cut along Wilson Street to access that head-in parking because of the location of the building being so close to the right-of-way. If we were to add a 5-foot landscape strip, we would need to have an access that would then have a drive aisle that would then access the parking spaces, which simply is not available between the right-of-way and the building. But again, we increase the the open space on site by approximately 540 square feet, which brings the open space from about 4% to 9%. And this is just by utilizing landscape areas which have been landscaped on site. We do not propose any changes to utilities. That would be sewer, domestic water, or any gas connections. There was one letter, I believe from Captain Koutsouphis, that said the building needed to be fire protected, and that is okay with the owner. We are okay with the condition to add a water line for fire protection. And I believe that about wraps up the presentation of the site plan. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've seen this property before. It's problematic, to say the least. Anybody on the board can wish to make a comment on this?
I think it's a, for this property, I think it's a great
Yeah, I intend to.
proposal. I like the fact that it's a 3-bedroom upstairs, so I think that's, as opposed to trying to make 2 apartments or whatever, it's 1 apartment, 3 bedrooms. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Paul, you got any thoughts?
No.
Mike?
No comment.
Yeah, I have to agree with Anita. This is as close to what we're trying to accomplish with some of our, for overlays as you can get with the apartment on the 2nd floor. So, let's see, Deirdre?
I'm good with it. I agree with you and Anita.
Okay. Nan?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The new landscape areas, how are they going to be separated or buffered from the pavement? In other words, how are you going to surround them so people don't drive on them?
Currently, we just have a saw cut and edge of pavement that would lead into the bark mulch / grassed areas, which will then be landscaped.
So I'm thinking that given the limited space that you have there, that you're going to need some sort of a rise to keep people from running over those landscape spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Otherwise, they're gonna look pretty bad.
it could be as simple as just a short wall, making it a land, that's so small, it could be a landscape, raised bed,
Right.
almost, if you needed.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it may simply be an asphalt, 6-inch asphalt
Like an
rim,
asphalt
but
berm.
I
Yeah.
think you need something there.
Sure.
All right.
At least something that tells people that they have run over it and don't do it again. I'm looking at your plant material and having a hard time reading this on my screen. So you've got a couple trees you have going in here. And it looks like
I'll read this in a sec.
I'm sorry, I really am having a hard time reading it. For some reason, it doesn't want to scroll side to side. The American elm Princeton, is that a elm disease resistant elm cultivar?
That I do not know.
It would be good if it were.
I mean, we can certainly coordinate landscape with you prior to my, final Mylar. But I do not know these landscaping species specifically.
Okay, got it. I do understand that. You know, I like your project. I really do. That property has been stressed for quite a while now. Anything we can do to get it, to soften it up and get it green and maintained and used would be a really good thing.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the two maples. I'm a little concerned about the ultimate size on them, but not terribly concerned. They have really deep tap roots and they're not gonna fall over. So, and they're actually a very pretty cultivar. They'll look nice in there. I'm good.
Okay, Tim, you out there?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. No, like everyone, I'm very glad to see some life come into the building. Just a couple of questions. Are you going to be able to drive through the parking lot? I apologize if you already answered that, but you know, with the ramp out back, will a vehicle be able to come in off of Chelmsford Street and then go to Wilson?
Yes, there will be access and continued access from both curb cuts of Wilson Street and Chelmsford Street.
Okay, and at this point right now, and I'm pretty sure there is no sidewalk on the building side of Wilson Street, correct?
Correct. All there is a wide asphalt curb cut that leads into head-in parking that crosses the property line into the right-of-way.
Okay. I mean, obviously, just kind of worry a little bit about cars backing up onto that traffic, but it is what it is. It's good to see life going in there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Question,
Yeah?
is that gonna be a problem if the town ultimately decides to put a sidewalk in there?
We would certainly have to coordinate, or they would have to coordinate with the property owners when they want to put it in to figure out how they will not be disturbing the existing uses.
Yeah.
But as it exists, there is no sidewalk. And this is it matches essentially how the existing parking goes, except we made it go within the property line.
Okay.
Do we want to get any input on that from facilities? From traffic,
It is what it is.
Public Works?
It is what it
No, I
is.
get that. I'm just concerned that they've been putting a lot of sidewalks in lately.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk directly across the street, so I don't envision the town putting in a sidewalk on the opposite side
Okay.
of this particular street.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Evan.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have 3 letters here that are relevant. One is the Health Department, no concerns. One from Center Water, no concerns. And I have the Fire Department letter that was referenced, and apparently that's all taken care of. But let me read it anyway to get it in. Dear members of the board, the Fire Prevention Office has reviewed the proposal for the change of occupancy classification at 47 Chelmsford Street. Water supply appears to be adequate. The required pressure and flow shall be confirmed by a current water flow test performed proximate to the site, with all calculations submitted to this department for review and approval. Existing Chelmsford Water District hydrants are sufficient to supply this building. This project proposes a change of use under the building code from the existing B business use to R residential. This project will require the installation of an NFPA NFPA 13 compliant sprinkler system. The automatic sprinkler system shall be monitored by an NFPA 72 compliant fire alarm system monitored by a central station agency. The location of all fire protection equipment shall be approved by the Fire Prevention Office. Access for firefighting apparatus and emergency vehicles is acceptable. Existing emergency apparatus access is achieved on Wilson Street and Chelmsford Street and is acceptable for this proposal. The dumpster location shown on this plan is adequate. The applicant must apply to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for unit addresses through its coordinator, Town Clerk Tricia Zuris. The proponent shall install acceptable wayfinding signage that indicates the presence of a residential unit at that location. This office approves of this plan with these conditions. I ask the board to make this letter a part of their approval process. Respectfully, Danielle Koutsouphis. And that's it for the letters. Any more comments from here, and then I'll open it up to the public? Do we have anybody from the public who would like to comment? This is a public hearing. I see nobody. I take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
We do have someone on Zoom.
Oh, we do have someone on Zoom? Okay. Would you go ahead?
It's Badre. Has his hand up.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we hear you.
Okay, thank you. This is just a public input. This is not something that is required at this time by the property owner, but at this time I would say as a committee chair of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, it might be worthwhile to just mention to the property owner that if they were to consider having, as part of this changeover to residents and stuff, anything to, or commercial part of residents, to be able to look into the factor of making sure that the parking spaces are compliant and capable at a future date to accommodate any EV charging stations that might be coming down the pike in the 5-7 year range as a public parking spot aspect, as well as to see if they can support a solar panel aspect of what needs to be done on the roof line so that they're more sustainable. With that basic input, I would leave. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't get a lot of that, but I gathered it was about concerns about possibly leaving open the possibility for a charging station. Any thoughts?
I don't know if Bob wants to come and speak to that, but I would say that the use would be a convenience store, which is typical rapid use.
Yeah.
Go in and go out. I don't know that there's really a use
point.
for having a charging station, because that would just take up one of the parking spots. But if Bob would be open to it, I'll let him answer to it.
First of all, good evening, everyone, like all the board members. My name is Bhavnesh Khurana. You can call me Bob, and I'm the owner of this property. And I'm really nervous, frankly telling you, because this is like the first experience I'm getting. My main concern is whatever the board or the town need, I'm only the owner on a piece of paper. Whatever you need, it will be accepted. If there is any space, if in the future also, if in case you need any declaration from my end for the charging station and everything, I do not have any problem.
Okay.
I invested all of my money, and this, like, I'm using for my own self. I don't want to sell this. Basically, I want to die in Chelmsford. This is my main motto. Give me an opportunity, that's it.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't know, this strikes me as small enough property that putting any requirement of the sort is probably a little overkill, although I think the point's a good one.
No, I agree with you on that. I think we need to have a working session, Evan, regarding sustainability. We can't be doing it, I mean, we should be looking at it for all projects. This is probably one of the smallest projects that has come forward to us in many years.
Right.
And I think by requiring, at this point, a charging station for 9 parking spots, when we got bigger projects coming in the town, I think it's overkill right now, but I think we should talk to the sustainability I'm putting a plan together, a criteria,
Sure.
so that I mean, if that's
Yeah,
doable.
the committee and Paul McDougall joined their subcommittee meeting last couple of weeks ago. Over the summer and leading into the fall, that committee will be engaging with the planning board and trying to establish some initial criteria.
Good, good, very good.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Mike and Evan, if I might choose to give a quick addendum to the comment. I'm not required. I'm just merely suggesting at this particular point that be considered, and I'm just making it aware. And I'm very glad to hear from the owner that they are amenable, and this just indicates their ability to sense for the future and be proactive. That's all. This is not a requirement. I'm just making a comment as consideration point. And until we get the rules or regulations or steps that's required to support for a more formal framework, I'm just speaking at regular intervals to the planning board at appropriate hearings to just give input, not required to see condition on this particular property. And I'm aware of the property, and I think it's a great use, and I'm all in support of that. It's just suggestions, that's all.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks, and it's on our radar now. One more shot for public input? Okay, now for real.
I make a motion to close public input.
Okay, need a move to close? Second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Did I hear a nay?
No?
No, you didn't hear a nay. Okay. That sounds like it's unanimous.
6-0.
Okay, so this now comes down to the request for the special permit per the VCOD. Any specific comment on this, or shall we move on the special permit? No comments? Seeing nobody, anybody out there in Zoom land? All right, I'll accept a motion to grant a special permit under 195, 126C and B.
I make a motion to approve 47 Chelmsford Street under special permit 195, 126C, and also parking per 195, 126B.
Okay. Moved by Mike, second by
Second.
Anita. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. Did I hear you, Tim?
Yes,
Okay. Then it's passed. You've got the permit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, board members, once again. Sincerely obliged. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good luck.
Okay, let's see what we got. Now we come to the River Neck Road project continued public hearing.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We're here this evening to continue the presentation. Our goal tonight would be threefold. One, to give a brief summary of where we've been. Two, to speak to the site plan, which was not presented fully, fully to the board. And three, to talk about or to acknowledge that we appreciate the continuances that the board has given us to date. The reason for those, apparently the town lost their engineer. The project went out for peer review, and we needed time to respond to the comments. We still have some open issues. We received a letter yesterday, and we'll continue to respond. But to that point, we used that period of time to focus on some of the comments we've heard from the board, from the concerned citizens, and we've used that time to do an outreach to potential users of the site that were brought up during the presentation and the discussion. I'm not at liberty to discuss who those users are, but I think that we're focused on what we heard from the board as well as the audience. And to show that we're genuine on that point, we've discussed and we're willing to put a covenant on the property to prohibit the use of a principal use of a so-called last mile distribution center. So that would be binding, notwithstanding your zoning, that we would agree that under no circumstances would that facility be built there. So We're moving forward. I think that ultimately we will have a project that I think the board as well as the community will get behind. Now I'd like to start the presentation. There we go.
All right.
Very quickly, as you all know, we're in a limited industrial district that permits the uses that we've articulated in our application. To date, we've gone through a number of meetings as well as outreaches, and have culminated with us being here this evening. Most of the time spent to date has been to focus on the traffic, at least in the public hearing context. We responded to the traffic inputs from your peer review consultant. And the conclusion was that, and if you recall, Jeffrey Dirk made a very nice presentation here from Vanaz. And in the interim, we've received the, and I think the conclusion there is we're in agreement with the conditions, and we feel that we could satisfy all of the issues raised. So the site plan review, as I indicated, we were advised that there was a vacancy in the town engineer's position, so we received a request to go out for peer review. We received the peer review letter on April 25th. We asked for a continuance to respond. We submitted our response on May 19th. We received final comments yesterday, and we're in the process of addressing those. We feel that we're in agreement with the comments. I think we can address all of them, either directly through additional data or appropriate conditions. And as I indicated, we are willing to work with the town staff and the town to draft a covenant which would run with the property and will prohibit that type of use. It seemed to be a very difficult use for the town to accept, even though that was not our proposed use. So, but to indicate that that's not what we're doing, we would agree that notwithstanding your zoning, we would put a covenant on that would prohibit that. It's referred to in the media as the last mile distribution. With that, I'm going to ask our engineer to walk through some of the changes or some of the additions to the site plan, and we would welcome any questions you may have.
Good evening. Name's Kevin McCutcheon with Civil Engineer. Can you hear me now? There we go. Good evening. Name's Kevin McCutcheon with Ty and Bond, Civil Engineer. Before us is on the screen here is the overview of the site layout. River Neck Road is on the bottom of the sheet, and 495 is at the top of the sheet to the north, Route 3 towards the east. We have laid out the site and made some improvements to the site based on comments received, particularly more recently the beta group comments, the peer review. We're proposing as part of condition of approval to reduce the amount of loading docks in the rear from 52 loading docks to 42. And as you can see, the loading docks are situated in the rear of the building as they have been all along, and that obviously is intended to screen and keep that truck traffic in the back farthest away from the street and the residential properties in front of the building. On both sides of the building, you'll see green shapes. Those are stormwater management systems. They're infiltration systems to promote stormwater to infiltrate into the ground. As part of the peer reviewers' comments, we've further improved on that and increased the size of those infiltration systems as well as the amount of the site that drains to those. So we are infiltrating more than what was originally proposed, improving on the stormwater management system. As well as increased some of the landscape plantings along the main access drive, the western of the two access drives on the left, to further screen the building on site from River Neck Road as well as the residential properties in front of the building. on Clark Street. Additionally, we've added sidewalks along each of the access drives to the building, and as well as along the full frontage of the property has been incorporated into the plans. Applicants also proposing to add EV charging stations and bike racks up near the front right corner of the building. That's a high-level overview of the site layout. If you want to have any questions currently or want to continue and ask questions later?
Could I make one? Mr. Chairman, one point of clarification. As to the loading docks, the number of loading docks that we show on the plan reflects the flexibility that we need to go to the marketplace right in today's world. If you don't go to the marketplace with a building that shows the ability to accommodate uses such as research and development and some advanced manufacturing perhaps, and show that the building is capable of handling that use, you're just not going to be successful in the marketplace. So what I would propose, the 42 number now is probably going to be adjusted based upon the user, and it's probably going to go down. So we just want the flexibility.
So your peer review consultant, Phil Paradis from Beta, is on the call. He did submit a memo dated May 24th, which I included in your hard packet. Why don't we have Phil?
Yeah, why don't we throw them on and,
Go over the highlights?
yep.
Phil, we're ready when you are.
Excellent. Good evening, Phil Powers from Beta Group, peer review consultant for the town. On this project, we have reviewed it for a second time. The applicant has addressed the majority of our issues, done a lot of work. It's a big site, it's a big project. There are a lot of moving parts, but the applicant has done a good job. Having said that, there are four issues that are outstanding. Three of them are minor. The fourth, the soil testing required to confirm, the permeability, the infiltration rate, and such. Will need to be completed before we can make sure that the system works as designed. And that's in SW4. The previous town engineer indicated that there's a need for an MDC trap for the floor drains. That is not included in the project yet, so that would need to be added. There also is a need for a planting plan for the bioretention basin, SW26. And the detail of the CDS unit, the water quality unit they're proposing to use should be included in the plan set as well as SW27. Beta recommends that the town review or at least acknowledge the challenges associated with two issues. One is that the current development was encroached on the town of Chelmsford land to the north corner there. And previously the applicant was just going to cut it at the property line, which he has every right to do that. But we recommend that the applicant work with the town to remove the remaining hardscape on the town of Chelmsford land. So we just want to make sure that they have the ability to do that from whatever legal mechanism is required. So and that's G1. The second one is they are importing, I want to say upwards of 80,000 cubic yards of the material, which is a significant amount relative to truck traffic for the construction. Now this is a very big site, and obviously it's going to mean that with one building you have to level it but we would recommend that the board consider additional conditions that may require, for instance, a truck route, that the applicant provide a trucking route and a video survey of the existing road conditions prior to any work, so that the town would be able to monitor damages caused by trucking for this particular project and provide and ask for mitigation for that. And then finally, there's four conditions that we recommend. Pretty standard. G3 would be the final retaining wall design plan be submitted to the town for his town engineer for his review. The EPA notice of intent and the stormwater pollution prevention plan final version should be submitted to the town engineer prior to construction. A final signed operation and maintenance plan should also be submitted, SW14, and finally, a signed illicit discharge statement should be submitted as well, SW34. So that's everything outstanding. They have addressed the flood, work in the flood zone. They've addressed all the other stormwater management standards relative to the town of Chelmsford's requirement, as well as the Mass Stormwater Handbook requirements. So. And that's it. I'll ask if you want any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I just want the record to show, I think that we'll be able to adequately address all of those concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, at this point, Evan, do you have any more you want to put in there, or shall we?
Nothing right now.
Okay, let me run it around the board once for initial comments, then open it back up to the public. We'll continue the public hearing. What do you see, before we do that, though, what do you see as our next step here in terms of hearings? I mean, this has been basically an update and discussion of the peer review, and we haven't gone back into some of the issues that were the most important to the public.
Yeah,
Traffic being the most.
so I think what you've heard tonight, from what I'm hearing, is the applicant has volunteered to place a covenant to restrict the use of the property for a last mile distribution facility. You may want to explore that
Yeah,
a little bit. We've covered traffic with your peer review consultant, so I think the technical issues associated with traffic
yeah,
are well documented. This evening, you've heard a presentation on the miscellaneous site plan details. That's been peer reviewed. From a technical perspective, all of the engineering, things of that nature, appear to be either resolved or able to be resolved. Certainly, the board usually has questions about site plan elements, landscaping, retaining walls, things of that nature, circulation, and then obviously continue the public hearing. I'm not sure you want to spend a lot of time on traffic this evening.
no, that was my thought, but I want to make sure that there's an opportunity.
Of course.
To continue that for the public, because I know that's a major concern.
Right.
Okay,
I think having a better understanding as to the extent
yeah,
of that covenant
yes.
may alleviate or eliminate a lot of the previous
Yep.
discussions related to traffic, particularly truck traffic.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So with that said, anybody on the board want to make an additional comment? And then I will open up the
I just have a
public
question. You specifically mentioned the 42 bays that could come down. Are you still looking at the potential of increasing more than 42, or is 42 is a cap?
No. Well, if it goes in any direction, it's going down.
It's going down?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not going to go more than 42?
right.
And any discussion with your potential companies about hours of operation?
We haven't, at this point, had that discussion yet. We're in discussion with a number of possible users that that has not come up, but we do realize that's an issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
But that, in my opinion, that's tied to traffic. Depending upon the operations, if they're internal and there's no traffic, those are the things that we'd like to flush out and be able to advise the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Nita?
Yeah, I'd just like to have the how, you said you're going to exclude last mile distribution center. I'd like to have that definition in front of us.
I
just so
don't know
can-
that we have a good definition for it, really, although we could certainly develop one.
We would need to
Yeah, I'd like
hear
to-
from town council on
Huh?
this, right? We would have to hear from town council
Yes.
on this proposal.
I
on
think
that-
we will.
That idea, so.
Yeah, and I also have a question as to, for the last 6 months, a big issue has been the traffic, but more importantly is what I've heard repeatedly is the truck access being across from a major school bus pickup. And I haven't seen that addressed, nor have I seen, while I appreciate the hedges and additional greenery, this is awfully close to people's homes. And I personally quite like to see some sort of, something done a little bit more aggressive than just putting in some additional trees. And it goes back to the point of the hours of operation, 7 to 5. I think that, where this is so close to the neighborhood, it has to have, that has to have something locked to that. I'm sorry. I don't think the board should consider anything this size that doesn't have that type of covenant in there. And then finally, I just have one question. How long do you typically keep property?
I'm sorry?
Like, how long do you keep, you've bought this property, you're going to develop it, how long, what is your typical life cycle before you resell it?
There's no hard and fast rule on that.
I just wanted to know, the business model of Davis companies, what's your typical, how long do you usually keep a property?
Well, a lot would depend upon performance and whether,
But as a company, they should know that. That's a statistic that they should know. Is it 5, 10, on average on all your properties?
Mike Cantalupa with the Davis Companies. I lead our development operations. We're a fund company, so we're capitalized with funds that we raise from investors. It's a closed-end fund, so it does have a life cycle to it. That life cycle can be anywhere from 5 to 7 years, so we would end up selling the property. At this scale of a development, it would likely be to a high-quality institutional investor that would potentially keep us on to maintain the property on a property management basis, but if it's not us, it would be another high-quality level property manager.
Yeah, so that's exactly what my point is. I know exactly what your company does.
Excuse me?
I know what your company does. It's, charter is to invest in properties and to make returns for your investors. I get
Right.
that. So it's not, just so we know, it's not a landlord that's coming in here that's going to be here forever. Their charter is to make money for their investors, just so we're all clear on that. Thank you.
I will just say that we've been in business for 45 years. We love to do repeat business in towns of the quality of Chelmsford. So our objective would be to do a good job, not only in the development of the property, the management of the property while we have it, and then to make sure that it is turned to a high-quality owner that does equal and maintains all the covenants that are put into the special permit decision.
Understood.
Paul?
I think I'm good at this time.
Okay. Out there in Zoom world, anybody else on the board wish to comment or ask a question?
I have a couple things. Deirdre Conley. One is again, the bays, the 42 bays. I get it that you're trying to maintain flexibility, but I guess I don't really understand what research and development company or why 42 bays are required for, other than a, trucking in and out type of use. And then, I guess I have a question for, Mr. Paradise or Paradise of, Beta. Typically we get these projects, well, I've only been on the board for a year, but typically we get these projects and we have kind of the end letter from the engineer with most of the more preliminary points of contention already worked out. And so I don't really know, but, reading through your letters, it seems like a lot of points of contention, 34, I think. And I just want to, some of them seem very mundane, but some of them seem like legal, and that it's surprising to me, given what you state is the law, that they're not already addressed in the plan. So I just wanted to query, does this seem like a large number of contentious issues that are needing to be resolved in a plan of this nature?
No. A project of this size is probably typical. The engineer has done a great job in terms of addressing majority of, some of it's just technical, that you need the paperwork to substantiate certain designs or certain components of the system. You just want to make sure that the details, adequate details for the town to come back and make sure that they're doing it according to the engineer's design. So there's really only one issue that's contentious in my mind, or at least lacking that should be done before approval, is the soil testing for the stormwater. The town, the legal issue related to work on town property is something that I'm not familiar with what entity owns that parcel behind. But I think if it's conservation, they would probably be in favor of restoring the property to natural conditions. But the other things are, the conditions are standard. So I think they've done a great job. This is difficult to do in two reviews, but they've done a good job.
Thank you for that. So my last couple things, I also have concern about the hours of operation, and I certainly would like that at some point to be much more clearly worked out. And then the last thing is, we have a sewer moratorium, and my understanding of this is that we can't know what the use of the project will be, so then I guess we don't know what the water and sewage use of the project will be. And so it seems to me we're being asked to approve something to be built without knowing how it will be impacted by the water and sewer moratorium. And so it seems to me a bit of the tail wagging the dog. I don't understand how we can approve something in the context of a sewer moratorium without knowing what the sewer needs will be.
Go ahead. We'll get an answer here for you.
Mr. Chairman, that's a legitimate question, but that's the design condition that we have to design too. So we have to, when we're seeking a user of the site, we know what the limitations are with respect to the sewer capacity based upon the prior use in the moratorium. So when we target the potential users, that's a condition that we're going to have to satisfy, which in some respects limits the intensity of the development, the internal development of the site.
Great, thank you. All set, Deirdre?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Nancy?
Yeah, I only have one question, I think. And that is in regard to the exclusion, the deeded exclusion of last mile warehousing or transit stations. And the question is, I understand the last mile, but there's other types of potential trucking transfer facilities other than last mile. What, do we need to also exclude those in order to keep the heavy trucking off of River Neck Road? Does that exclusion need to be broader than just last mile transfer?
Okay, let me expand a little bit on what Nancy said. Turns out I just got back from a trip out I-80 out to Dayton. And if you go along I-80, you see lots and lots of facilities that are not last mile facilities. They are trucking transfer facilities, and they're huge. And I don't think any of us thinks that that's a likely thing to happen in Chelmsford. Nonetheless, I think Nancy's hit on something. If we are going to have something that excludes that kind of heavily trucking-centric use, we might want to consider being a little bit broader than just last mile. And I have a hunch that that could be worded fairly easily, but that we would need to be thinking of that. And I would make that suggestion to you.
So Mike, I think that's a good comparison in terms of those huge facilities. And obviously, this site is not large enough to host that kind of a facility, and that by itself excludes that kind of use. But there are other warehousing uses that could potentially involve a lot of truck traffic. Simple transfer stations. We are at the intersection of two highways, and that makes it very lucrative for a company to situate there. There are local delivery services that are not last mile services. I think of something like my favorite charity, the Merrimack Valley Food Bank, and they have a lot of trucks coming and going. They're a warehousing facility. They have trucks coming in to bring food in and trucks going out to deliver it all over the Merrimack Valley area. They're not what I would consider a last mile facility. So I'm just thinking that we need a broader scope in terms of trucking exclusions.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, it's a good question. We will focus on, when we define what the use is, those concerns. We use the term last mile because that tends to be the most intensive in terms of delivery of product during the evening or night hours, and then that distribution of that product during the day. So we understand the question or the concern, and when we craft this covenant, we'll take that under consideration.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks. And I think we're
Thank
to
you,
some
sir.
degree homing in on the right point. Before I open this up to the public, let me try to summarize what I think I see as the nature of the problem that we're facing. We started out looking at something that folks saw 52 bays, and you start imagining, 3 trucks a day or something like that at each bay, and you start doing the arithmetic, and you get a heck of a lot of trucks. On the other hand, if you've got a bunch of R&D facilities, they need to have a bay. They might have 1 truck a week.
But they don't need 42.
Yeah, but you.
Docking stations.
Yeah, and that's 42, but.
That's,
So you get a somewhat different looking number. But it's very hard to pin that down in a way that would clearly and effectively limit the traffic. Reducing the number of bays is one way that at least reduces the maximum. Reducing accessible hours is another, and maybe the most important one is changing the use so you don't wind up with a use that gets 3 and 4 and 5 trucks a day at each of these things. It gets 1 a week. I mean, I was at I know the site pretty well. I used to work there. And yeah, they had a couple of bays, and they might have one truck, and it might sit there for a couple of days. You know, it was not a warehousing kind of use. But without having something laid out in the covenants or the understanding or the permits that defines this pretty well, we find ourselves at a bit of a loss as to understand just how bad it's going to be. And let me point out, we're going to try to make something happen here, if it's going to happen, that's limited enough that we don't see a truck problem. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you for allowing me to respond. What may or may not have been clear in our presentation, when we were at 52 and 42, we're talking about 42 locations for doors, okay? We would expect, as a user is identified, to that number of doors, actual doors that get installed, to come down in a significant way. So I think with respect to a covenant, or I think maybe this particular issue gets covered in the decision as opposed to a covenant, for our ratio of number of doors per square foot of building area to be established, that would put perhaps a maximum cap on the number of doors that would be lower than 42.
Okay.
So, and to get to an acceptable range, I think for what that would address it. What that would allow us to do would be if we had tenant A that came into the building and they needed a certain spread of doors across the floor plate, it would give us the flexibility to put doors in certain locations to respond to their internal circulation needs. And then if tenant B came in 10 years later, we'd have the door location specified. We'd take that number of doors out and maybe redistribute them in a way that met that tenant needs. So what we've been talking about all along is really locations for potential bays, and knowing that the actual implementation of a number of doors would come down significantly from what's proposed.
Okay,
Does that make
great.
sense?
And that's kind of what I understood all along, but getting to the point where it's expressed clearly enough and definitively enough that people feel comfortable in their expectation of what's really going to be there for trucks. That seems to be the hard part here. And it sounds like there's, at a minimum, some more drafting to be done. And I think fairly soon we'll probably want to involve town council, at least when we get to some sort of proposal on this area, and we can get his take on it too.
Agreed.
Okay, well go ahead.
Tim's still online.
Oh, Tim, forgot you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, hi.
No problem.
This is Song from 36 Montman Street. I had a question or a concern that I don't feel like it was addressed.
Could you hold on a second? I was trying to, I'll get to you in just a moment. I wanted to get to Tim Shanahan.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have any questions, obviously, at this time, because I think there's still, we're waiting on more information. But obviously, like other members, I have concerns, with traffic and number of bays. But I mean, obviously, they're working hard to make us happy here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tim. And did you have another comment you wanted to make?
Yes, we haven't done a noise study on, and we have UPS, and, the noise the amount of noise from that can be heard miles away. And I think when we're looking at something like this, that is so close to the neighborhood, that I think we should do a noise study to see the impact to these residents. I mean, and you guys are saying that this, they've come back and they're working with us. They haven't worked with us. All they did is go from 52 to 42. They haven't addressed the noise concerns to the neighborhoods. They have not addressed the school bus stop in that truck lane. And we're saying that they're working with us and it could be less. Well, then the only way it could be less is if we say that it's no more than 25 in this size facility. And I think we as a planning board should go take a ride around and look at manufacturing, biotech manufacturing, and see how many docking bays on this type of facility is actually needed.
Okay, and with that, I believe we head into the public input. We'll start with Tom, who got started a second ago. Can you go ahead?
You're talking about Kim on Facebook, on Zoom?
Me?
On Zoom. Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, yeah, I'm not Tom.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
Song.
Tom, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, I'm Song from 36 Monmouth Street. Hi. I feel like there's a concern that hasn't been addressed that some residents have already brought up, and that's the narrowness of River Neck. It's pretty tough to walk as is or take your bike on River Neck towards 129, and with a warehouse and vans and and tractor cars driving through those narrow streets, I'm very concerned that we will see death. Either my son, my neighborhood kids, pets, they're not going to be able to dodge them when they drive through, and they're going to get hit. Was there any solution to these concerns, to that particular concern?
I think as a general point, the biggest control that we have, to the extent we have control, and I think we do, is simply number of trucks. Cutting down that number, cutting it down. I mean, there will always be, if there's any kind of business use up there at all, there will be a truck from time to time going to it. The question is it going to be 1 a day, 10 a day, or 100 a day? And I think that's
I
the
was
critical.
kind of curious if we could mandate them to create a sidewalk then, because at least you get a chance to, if they're going to have trucks, whether it's 1, 10, I mean, it's still going to be hard to avoid for a little child. They're taking a bike through that street.
Yeah.
Could we mandate them to make a sidewalk that connects their business all the way to 129, because that's the narrowest part of River Neck, as far as I am aware of.
Your point's a good one. The difficulty there is the narrowness of the road and the requirement that somebody's going to have to take land from somebody to build a sidewalk. And many of those houses, the way they're located, it's going to be a little bit difficult. You'll wind up doing a lot of eminent domain taking that you really don't want to do. But that has been discussed, and I think we will continue to discuss it.
Mike?
Yes, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah. On that topic, we may want to look at contributions to the sidewalk fund.
Oh, we believe, when we get to that point, we most certainly would. Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. It is a public hearing. I'd love to hear some input. Anybody here?
Yes,
Keeping in mind that we will have an opportunity to discuss in more depth the traffic situation, particularly after we've looked at this, this proposal that's been made for some kind of a restriction or covenant. And we'll have to see what that looks like in order to interpret it properly. But there will be ample opportunity, I assure you, to have further discussions of the truck and traffic issues on there. So with that in mind, you know, if you can avoid going over that topic again and again, because I know that is what's on people's minds, really. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Joel Luna, 10 Carter Drive, and I have a set of slides and a letter for each of the board members, but I don't know how to get them to you, so I don't know if I hand them to...
You can start with the guy at the end.
If you have hard copies, yep.
Yeah, if you have hard copies, pass them around. We'll certainly get them distributed and have a look.
All right, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to comment.
Okay, is this to?
Yeah, and particularly I'm going to be looking at the slides, so the letter is for your reference for later.
Okay, okay, got it.
And I apologize for the people on Zoom that you don't get your own copy. Yeah, so I'm actually a former ZBA member. I was on the ZBA for 10 years. I
Yep.
got off about 10 years ago. Saw a number of special permits. We handled a lot of variances, a lot of 40Bs, pretty large, complex 40Bs. I think Mr. Buckley represented Walnut on one of those before us. So I was asked by a neighbor to look at this, in particular, the traffic stuff, since I would typically look at that as a board member.
Okay.
And had a number of comments, and then also looked into some things related to it. So I wanted to go over those.
Before you do,
Yeah.
I'm going to make a suggestion here. I'm taking a quick look at this, and it's based necessarily on a number of assumptions about what the use is going to be, warehouse, this, that. We're in the process of discussing some covenants that would limit that, and it may make more sense for us to get a proposal as to how Davis would limit
Yeah,
the
I'm-
use,
I'm-
and then come back and, you see my logic.
They're not proposing
I'm
limiting
glad
the-
you brought that up, because I can tell you, when I was on the board, there was often discussion about putting certain things in covenants, particularly condominium covenant documents related to like stormwater, stuff like that. And my basic feeling was, over time, after like about 10 years, my feeling was that if it was something I really cared about, I wasn't going to rely upon a covenant to make sure it happened. My control as a board member was over whether I approved or denied. Anything that went out of my hands, I could only hope would work out. And so what you essentially would be doing is you'd be delegating the outcome of this project to someone else. And whoever that is going to have to police those covenants. And so the question is, who's going to be doing that? And what confidence do you have in that?
Yeah.
Some board members have confidence in that. I did not.
Well,
So-
your point's a good one, and we have seen examples about town of situations where it didn't look as if the enforcement of prior agreed things of that sort was necessary. On the other hand, the only other alternative to that is simply deny it if there's any possibility, and I don't think we're in a position to do that.
I think you are in a position to
Why
do
not?
that. And the reason I think that you are in a position to do that is actually my first slide.
Okay.
Which is that on a special permit, the criteria that you use is that you look to see, are there adverse effects of this permit, of this project? Will they have adverse effects? One of those things on which you look to see, does it have an adverse effect, is the neighborhood character. That is in the bylaw. You do assess that.
Yes, indeed
So
it
if you
is.
determine that there is an adverse effect, which I am proposing that there will be, then you further have to weigh whether you think that adverse effect outweighs the benefits of the project. And what I'm suggesting to you is that because of the proposed project with the traffic as proposed, I want to emphasize that, as it was proposed. So as proposed, they chose a warehouse land use designation, 150 truck trips a day. So if you're trying to get 8 hours of sleep, that means 48 hours if you're operating 24 hours. If you limit that to between 7 and 5, as I heard, now you've condensed those 150 truck trips within that period. So now you have an even more intense amount of truck traffic going past you. Okay. So that's as proposed. But what I'm further going to suggest is that the Institute of Transportation Engineers, who basically generate the trip generation rates that were used in the studies, there are other uses, as we were talking about today. There are other uses of a warehouse, particularly high cube warehouse uses, that vary in terms of how much total traffic there is and how much truck traffic there is. So in some of these cases, like in a sort facility warehouse, there is much fewer truck traffic, but there is almost 4 times as much total traffic. So I have 2 areas of concern. One is Riverneck Road. As you pointed out, it's narrow, it's winding. All the houses are up close to the road, so they are going to definitely perceive the amount of truck traffic going past. That's one. The other one is Golden Cove. Both intersections But particularly, I live in Carter Drive, which is an adjoining street to that. And when traffic, and as you saw in the traffic report, there's already worse levels of service there as it exists right now. And then what they did in their study was they said, well, if we optimize the signal timing, then it will actually be okay. But there aren't, as Jeff Dirk pointed out, you don't have an assurance from the applicant that they will ensure that that will happen. They do mention some things that are on the state that is potentially coming, but that's 4 years after this project would be built. And also, it is not defined what it is. So you don't even actually know whether those currently funded projects are actually going to do anything to help. Yeah. But what happens is if you have one of these other possible uses and it generates 4 times the amount of traffic, it's going to create a lot of problems in addition to the problems that we have now, which is basically we have people cutting through these side streets. And yes, we have signs occasionally, very rarely, sometimes the police will stop by. But generally it's a problem and it will only intensify, which obviously concerns us about safety with neighborhood kids and so forth and so on. And so I guess the main thing also that I'm not actually going through the slides, so I'll just give it to you in a summary, is that one thing that you'll notice in the quotes that I put in there from the ITE is that there isn't a really well-defined way of relating the site plan characteristics to the actual use.
Yep.
And that creates a great deal of uncertainty about if you approve this plan, you don't have any real way of controlling what ultimately happens, particularly if it's sold. And again, now we're going back to, well, okay, if we put covenant documents on and so forth like that, I just don't have, not for a number one concern, I would not have a high confidence that a covenant document would perform what I want to do as a board, which is to ensure that these things will not happen. And the only way you can be sure is to deny the application. And you have every right to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you. And your point about the uncertainty, that's almost the crux of this. Because there's a lot of uncertainty in all of the calculations and all the considerations we put in here. I think what we try to do, and I think what the proponent has at least talked about tonight, is finding ways to reduce that uncertainty. Now, I don't know if we're going to be successful at that. You know, it's, as you point out, it's a tough nut to crack. But I think we need to give it a shot. And I will say this, I know of at least one example that's cooking now where a project of some size, although not nearly as big as this, ran into some issues with not living up to some of the things that have been promised, and they're getting pushed back pretty hard as of this last 2 weeks. So yeah, we have mechanisms to enforce if we have things like covenants or conditions, if you will.
Yeah.
The bigger question is how well do we execute on those?
Right.
And I think that's an area where we have been improving and need to improve, but we can't, but it's a tool that we have to use.
But that doesn't help the people who are living there.
Huh?
So say we go down this road and they're not coming, they're not doing what we put in for a covenant.
Right.
What happens to the folks who live next door to it and who are dealing with that?
Yeah.
So I think it's up to us to either make it, and to his point, are the only power we have as a planning board is either we accept it or deny it. It's been 6 months that we've been having these open meetings. How much, and what if they changed? They went down 10 docking stations out of all the public input. And I'm even talking when they had all the neighbors in there in December and they expressed these concerns.
Mm-hmm.
They have done nothing to work with the community. They've yet to come in here and do something. And if they were willing, and they said, okay, you're right, this is too close to the neighborhood, we're gonna cut it back, we're gonna make it a little smaller, we're gonna move the truck lane so it's not across from the school bus stop, we're gonna, go down, you're right, this is not the right, nothing. They put an extra couple trees, great.
Does anybody have any questions for me? First of all, I meant to ask that question.
No, I don't. I think the uncertainty piece that you hit toward the end was sort of my hot button.
I would like to put this into the record. I ask that this gets put into the record, please.
What's this?
I was going to ask if can you send this electronically to
Yes,
us? 'Cause
I
there's-
Yeah,
can.
that
I
would
was
be
gonna offer to
appreciated. It's a
do
lot
that.
easier to
There's
read
3
that way.
board members that don't have this in front of them.
Yeah.
And I
I
like
would be
this
glad to
attached
do
to our
that.
minutes in the record.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The-
let's get
the-
this-
The only last thing I'd like to say is that as each board member has to weigh, as I did, has to weigh in their own heart and mind, you know, do I think that by approving this with conditions, I will ensure that these adverse effects will not outweigh the benefits? And if you can't be sure, then I think the thing that is best to do in this case, because of where it is, and I think that's the thing that we have to keep remembering. It's not only what it is, but it's where it is. And if this were somewhere else that wasn't basically some stretch of road up a very, very residential, very windy road, then I would say that would be a slightly different matter. But in this case, I think you have to be sure that it's not going to have the adverse effects that it looks like it well may. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll get this in the record. Hi.
Hi. My name is Judy Clock, and I too live on Carter Drive, 21 Carter Drive in Chelmsford. So I've been following these meetings for a while, and I've prepared a statement which I'll give to you. I looked up the mission of the planning board on the Chelmsford website, and I guess I'm going to be a little redundant with what Joel said already. It is as follows, quote, "The planning board strives to guide land use management that preserves the character and integrity of the town," end quote. So I don't believe this project preserves the character and integrity of the town. Over the past months, as I follow these meetings, it's clear that the people living in residential areas near the proposed River Neck Road project are very much opposed to it. They've made it clear that it will impact the quality of life they counted on when they chose to buy homes in this area. My husband and I have lived on Carter Drive off Golden Cove for 25 years. We've raised our children there, and we see new families moving into our neighborhood, raising their children, taking walks, supervising them while they ride their bikes or play in the snow. The character of surrounding areas will definitely change if this project is permitted. Again, I know you don't want to hear about it, but heavy traffic of large delivery trucks, because we don't know what they're going to put in there, and it looks like there's 42 bays, so they're going to increase dramatically on nearby roads, already burdened with traffic during commuting times. For us, this results in cars, as Joel said, cutting through Carter Drive to avoid traffic on Golden Cove. That endangers small children in the area. Public safety will be affected due to the winding nature of River Neck Road. Don't forget, the town has constructed or is in the process of constructing sidewalks so children can walk safely to school. How safe are they going to be if we have, you know, all this traffic? We're not looking at one or two minor zoning variances for this project. There are many. I believe the zoning regulations are there for a reason. It doesn't make sense if we accept projects that run roughshod over regulations that were set to maintain the character of the community. And then lastly, there was a gentleman with a logistics background who spoke at a meeting several months ago. And he summarized it best from a cost-benefit standpoint for the community. Jobs created by this project will probably be on the lower pay scale, as robotics are likely to be used in this facility to reduce costs. We can only make assumptions because we don't know what they're going to use it for. Many truck drivers unfamiliar with the area will be traveling the winding River Neck Road at all times of the day and night. The wear and tear on our roads from constant truck traffic and to and from the facility will be significant, requiring the town to spend more money repairing and maintaining roads. The risk of toxic spills may increase. The bottom line is that the cost of allowing these variances far outweighs the benefits for the town and nearby residents who paid their share of property taxes and expect to maintain the character of their town. I really appreciate all the questions that the planning board has directed at the applicant, and but again, as Joel said, there's just way too much uncertainty for this project. It's just very unfortunate that it seems it will change the character for residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chris LaValle, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Rep. One of the previous speakers actually mentioned a point that I was going to make, so I'm not going to repeat it, about the 150 truck trips a day based on the actual proposal. But I also want to point out that there is a massive tractor trailer storage area, parking area located on that plan as well, that is massive. And if you look at the size of that compared to most standard tractor trailers, that could easily double the size of the number of trailers on that property. So if you take about 42 docks, and you could fit another probably 40 to 50 trailers in that parking area. Now, I just wanted to I know we're trying not to talk about traffic tonight, but I just wanted to bring up 2 points that while the applicant may feel like the traffic concerns have been addressed, there's still 2 that I feel have not been addressed by the applicant nor the board. The first is the other side of River Neck Road having been excluded from the traffic study. The other point is the fulfillment center traffic code. Now, granted, the applicant may be taking care of that with the exclusion, but still based on their proposal of 150 truck trips a day, that is still, if you look at the number of truck trips, especially in the videos that have been posted recently, that's a significant number of truck trips that are going to increase in that area. Now, the rest of my comments are going to be based on the plans that were presented tonight. And I apologize if any of these points were addressed in the peer review of the peer review responses, but that hasn't been posted yet, so I didn't have a chance to read it. Since the usage is unknown, is there any plan to limit hazardous materials coming in and out of the site? Depending on what the use of the building is, there may be hazardous materials coming in. It's right next to the wetlands. Is there any plan for that? Will there be a hazardous material emergency plan in place because it's so close to residential areas and the wetlands? Also, will the loading dock area be a no idling zone to reduce noise and pollution? In addition to that, the back loading dock area seems to be draining into a rain garden based on the proposal. Now, if there's a spill from one of the trucks or gas leak, that's going to be going right into the rain garden. And it looks like there are shutoffs and things like that beyond the rain garden, but once that spill gets into the rain garden, that's already a significant spill to clean up. So I didn't know if that was being addressed in these plans as well. The construction entrance does seem to be awfully close to the Clark Street residences, so I would not want to be a owner of one of those homes during construction. Lastly, if the company that occupies the building hires independent contractors for their truck drivers, will there be specific languages in the permits or anything to hold those independent contractors accountable? One of the issues that we have heard about UPS is that whenever there are complaints against UPS, they say that their drivers are independent truck drivers, so take it up with them. There needs to be some language for that. There was recently an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver where he did an exact story on this. I would highly recommend looking it up. I can send you the link. But it really does talk about how these companies hire independent truck drivers to get out of liability for covenants and things like that. So I would highly recommend
What was that?
researching that
Can
as
you
well.
repeat that?
And I believe that is it. So thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time.
I've always had that suspicion about the independent truck drivers myself. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Katie Melville. I live at 6 Monmouth Street, also a town meeting rep for Precinct 10. If we wanted to limit the hours of operation, is that done in the deed, or how is that done? How could it be done?
It's generally done in the special permitting. It's as a condition.
So is this something the planning board would have to make a separate proposal for?
Yeah, I mean, no, it would be part of the finding of the planning board, you know, that granted the permits and closed the issue. We do it, this is absolutely routine. We do it all the time.
Okay, are you
I know-
planning to add it in, or you haven't decided yet?
Well, we haven't got to the point of working out those level of details, but I can assure you that this is precisely the kind of thing that goes into the decisions.
Okay, perfect. And I know the applicant is applying for several variances. This is just my ignorance, I haven't been to many planning board meetings before all of this started, but at some point, will the planning board vote on each variance separately, or how does that work to get these approved or not approved?
It depends a little bit on the way it got to us. Is this going to be a separate,
Well, there are no variances.
it's not,
And-
variance
and
is the wrong word.
And I know there's been a lot of testimony this evening. I wish the board would correct the record when you know that there's incorrect information being presented. Otherwise, I'm forced to do it, and I don't really want to be in that position.
Maybe not
But
variance, special permit, is that the?
There are
I'm
no
sorry.
variances.
Okay,
The use is a permitted use. The special permit is for major business
Special permit,
complex.
that's what I
This
meant.
is critical for people to understand this, particularly we're multiple meetings into this.
okay. So it's special permits that
So
they are applying for
just so I-
several.
If the board needs assistance and the board thinks that the community needs assistance, I strongly encourage you to bring counsel in as soon as possible, particularly if you're talking about conditions and notions that conditions can't be enforced and you can't trust enforcement authorities and you're contemplating denials. Now's the time to bring in
I'm
counsel.
not, wait a minute, just to be clear.
Because regardless of how you proceed, the decision has to be defensible.
Right.
My understanding of tonight was that they were here to present an update. I think they told you that they would come back. So it's difficult to have detailed conversations where the public's asking questions when we don't have the information. In my opinion, the logical thing to do is to continue, give the applicant clear direction as to what you expect in order to resolve whatever the primary issue is.
Yeah, and
You can have an intelligent
precisely what we're
conversation.
doing. I think we're giving the proponent an opportunity to hear some amount of what the public is saying. Now, I realize that a lot of what the proponent is hearing has been heard before. We've heard it, you've heard it, you've heard it. But it's, ensuring that communication has taken place, I think is an important part of what we're doing here as well. And differences between, we understand the difference between a variance, a special permit, and a condition. I doubt most people in town actually do, and I'm not sure that it's particularly important that they understand those details, as long as they understand what we can enforce or purport to enforce in a decision, whether it be a special permit or a condition. So, anyway.
Thanks for
Good.
the clarification. On Riverneck Road, there are no speed limit signs. I think there used to be. Is that something, I guess my question is, how can I get those in place regardless of whether this project goes through or not? But it alerted me to that.
Well, that would be, take it up with public safety.
Public safety,
It probably
okay.
should have signage on it if it doesn't. And I think it's 30, isn't it? It's not that fast.
I thought it was 30, but I drove up and down looking for them. I don't know when
Yeah,
they
now,
got.
try
I
to
don't know.
find somebody actually going 30 on Riverneck Road, that's
Exactly.
another problem.
Yeah, but, okay, all right, so public safety, thank
Yeah.
you for that. Okay, So, yeah, all my other points I think were addressed, so I won't go
Okay.
over them. I just know last time the applicant was here, they talked about how they're trying to make this as palatable as we can. They know it's ugly. They know we don't want it. They know it's not a nice project. The neighborhood doesn't want it. It doesn't benefit the town. We have that, over 100 or over 1,000 signatures against it. And it's not that we're resistant to change, as was also said at the last meeting. We proposed other ideas such as the R&D or even elderly housing. It's not that we're opposed to change, but this is not the use that we want
Okay.
for this part of our town. Thank you.
Okay. All right, do we have anything, and try to keep it to new. I mean, please avoid things that we've already heard, because we'll have another shot. Believe me, we'll have another shot. Hi.
Hi, Armin Jeknavorian, 5
Yeah.
Bailey Terrace. Just want to follow up with you guys. I sent you an email a month ago about some videos I have.
Yeah.
I've heard back from 2 board members. So as of last night, we have a Stop the Riverneck Road YouTube channel, Stop Riverneck Road. On it is a trail camera. I have over 2 weeks of video of trucks and cars. As you say, they don't go the speed limit
Yeah,
on Riverneck
right.
Road. But no truck I have a video of has stayed in their lane on any of the curves. And even I have a Sterling truck who helped me shoot video navigating Riverneck Road from the end to end. And this road is not for trucks. I'm not, I know you've heard me speak before, but go watch my videos.
Yeah.
More will be coming up there of cars in various corners and trucks, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night, several tractor trailers up on the road, by the bus stops, missing the bus stops, and locking their brakes on the curves. You can hear it all, date stamped. Please watch the channel, Stop Riverneck Road. Thank you.
Thanks. By the way, that material that he had sent us last month, is that up?
I'm sorry, what's that?
That material that Armin sent us
Is it-
was a
is
month
it-
or two ago.
It's not up anywhere, no.
It's not up anywhere? Okay.
Oh, it's not up on any town.
Okay.
But I believe it's posted on a
Yeah,
private.
he's got it posted. Okay.
And I just
Yeah.
add to that, I did see those videos, and there's a very interesting video
Yeah.
that he took of a school bus and a tractor trailer that's worth watching, so I do recommend the community to take a look at that. And I do recommend that the developers take a look at that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like they're hearing some of the concerns.
It's interesting stuff. Hi.
Hi, Eric Finney, I live on Clark Ave. Question I had was, I know you've done a couple different types of peer reviews. Is it appropriate to do, because of this type of project being abutting residential neighborhoods and being surrounded by residential neighborhoods, is it appropriate to ask for like a financial impact on, residential properties and even like some of the businesses?
We typically steer a bit clear of financial impact arguments of this sort. It's not to say that we don't consider them, but we're more concerned with being in compliance with the zoning bylaws and being within the range of discretion that the board has, particularly on things like special permits.
Has anything like
That's
that?
that's kind of a fuzzy in-between answer, I realize.
Yeah. Has there been any projects within the last 5 years or 10 years that you're aware of that was done?
I don't think in any major way. Can you think of any, Evan?
There's no projects that have addressed or assessed the impact to property values of adjacent properties.
Okay.
I'm not even sure that's within legal jurisdiction.
Okay.
There's plenty, as you've heard from testimony from the board and the public, there's plenty of other legal zoning approval criteria.
Yeah.
And that's what most of the testimony and peer reviews have been about.
Right.
But we did have during our work session, we did have someone from the assessor's office that did provide some understanding from a financial impact of the value
Yeah,
of
we did.
warehouse versus office space. And they did say it was about 40% less value,
And
less tax revenue.
And I sent an email to the planning board and the select board and a couple of residents within the last day or two. And I circled back with the assessors, and they've provided additional information and clarity. And the 40 or 60% is not accurate. I mean, that's a side note on what we're discussing this evening.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, and again, I'll just reiterate, being in a butter, you know, the uncertainty of what the actual use of this site, it really drives to a lot of the unanswered questions, obviously like the hours of operation, what the real traffic's gonna be, safety, all that, and I just, you know, continue to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point's a good one. It was brought up earlier. The uncertainty question is perhaps the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, like that to me is just enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that they, that, you know, you guys could come up with like maybe like an alternative use for the site. I mean, that would, you talk about, you know, being amenable to the community's needs. That would be huge to see like what else you could offer up. You know, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, we will have more opportunities to discuss this, and particularly on the traffic stuff. I urge you, though, in general, to let's wait and see what we get for a proposal that might limit that traffic some more, as we've already discussed. I think that behooves us to do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Final comment before we continue.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like the record to reflect that we're proposing something that is consistent with your bylaw.
Yeah.
And that we're trying to make it work both for the residents, their concerns, and the concern.
Yeah. Hold it. Enough of that.
And the concerns.
We're not able to hear anything.
Oh, could you maybe get a little closer to the mic there? That would help.
As I said, we're trying to make it work. We're consistent with the bylaw. We've heard the issues. We're trying to address them. We have tried to be responsive.
Same thing here. I know, I'm trying to let them know on the control booth. Zoom people cannot hear the meeting.
Oh, okay. We having trouble with Zoom?
Apparently.
Okay, let's see if we can fix this.
I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me on the microphone on the desk. Can you speak again, see if you're getting through?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep, I can hear them.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but we got it fixed.
Thank you very much. I'll
Sure.
start again. I just want the record to reflect that what we're proposing is in accordance with your bylaws. We have done nothing that it deviates from them and is trying to put something that is inappropriate. Now, we have heard the concerns. There is a commercial project there. It's been there a while. It is to use that in today's market is not necessarily a wise economic choice. So we're trying to get something that will reflect the comments we've heard, but let it be stated that all the data that we've provided, we've done our best to be as transparent as possible and have been willing to meet and have discussions on the issues.
Okay.
And we will continue to do so. That being said, I think that we will address some of the issues that have been raised or suggested by a covenant. There is a certain amount of uncertainty. There are ways to control that uncertainty with conditions. As a matter of fact, early on in the covenant, the 16 months after operations, and if not, then how do you address it? So we will continue that good faith dialogue and hopefully resolve the issues and get the board as well as the residents to a degree of comfort that is sustainable.
Okay.
It's not going to be perfect because you have an existing project there that could have higher intensive traffic if it were to be reconstituted as another use. So we understand all those issues. Town, whether it's if it's the board's discretion to continue for the next meeting, but it may take longer than that. But what we try to do is respond before that if we need a further continuance to address the issues. We apologize for the lack of timing in those continuances, but in often cases, we got the response. We did not have time to
I know, I
respond appropriately, and we did not want to waste the board's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have a sense for when you might be prepared? Because we're going to wind up continuing, I think, and I'd want to make sure it's a date that works.
Mike?
Yes?
Question, can we add a noise study to the impact of those neighbors?
I don't know.
And a traffic study for the other part of River Neck Road, which is a high accident where it abuts Carlisle off that bridge. We've had some some major accidents there.
Okay. I think there was accident data.
What would we base a noise study on where we don't know who the users would be?
Who was that speaking?
It's Nancy.
That's Nancy,
And
okay.
I'm saying, what would we base a noise study on? Because we already have under discussion that that this will not be a last mile distribution point. And we're at least discussing and negotiating further limitations on warehousing. So, if those are off the table, then the question becomes, what would we be evaluating noise on?
Well, I mean, this is a very large facility.
I don't think we
I
have
can
enough.
give you an example if you want one, Nancy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's this?
It's Marlene.
This is Marlene Cody, former town meeting rep. I live on Sprague Avenue, which is off Brick Hill. So I'm a mile from UPS. If you have tractor trailers parked in this lot that they're talking about, I heard that earlier tonight, the connection and disconnection of those trailers is extremely noisy, and that's what I hear from UPS. All night long, we hear huge bangs. So,
Arlene, I understand that, but the point is that what we are currently negotiating is that those tractor trailers will not be the use for this site, but we don't know what the use will be.
I see.
Yes, so.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond?
Yes,
to that?
please go ahead.
What I would suggest, we're having ongoing discussions with potential users that may alleviate a lot of your concerns.
Right, that's what I'm
So what I would
hoping.
suggest is if we could continue until the 8th.
8th,
And I would
okay.
endeavor to give advance notice if we need more time to ask for continuance.
Perfect, yeah.
But I think that we are making a good faith effort
Yep.
to address what we've heard tonight and for the last few months. And hopefully we'll be able to be in a position to, through the user of the site, negate a lot of the concerns. Thank you.
Great, and I want to recognize that good faith effort.
And can I just question, a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
If you were with the new user and you would have a better understanding of the dimensions and what would be needed, would that mean you would have a new proposal?
We would modify the existing proposal.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I'm sort of tempted to look for a motion to continue.
Mike, I just would like to add one thing.
Who's this?
This is Marlene Cody again, and I didn't get a chance to speak yet except to tell you about
Okay.
noise. So, I've listened to everything everyone said, and I just would like to feed this back. I understand the board's concerns and probably Evan's concerns that you guys need to have a defensible verdict on this situation. Because you don't want to be sued. The town doesn't want to be sued. Everybody's afraid of suits. But I would say that the residents could also sue you.
Yep.
And so you need to look out for us too. And we challenge you as a board to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, do we have a motion to continue to the 8th?
Motion to continue to the 8th.
I have a motion,
Second.
a second. In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, there's another aye. Okay. We're continued to the 8th, and we'll get some details out to the public as we can if we get more information about what's going to be discussed and how it's going to be discussed. Thanks. Okay, Evan, I think we're kind of at the end of our,
You want to go back
Do
to?
you have a set of minutes to approve?
we do have a set?
Yes, May 11th.
Okay, and then you're right, and we had one, we had the request to release lots.
Yes.
Is there anybody here on that?
I did not see anybody here for that. I know it's time sensitive for the applicant. It's fairly boilerplate.
Okay.
To refresh some of the board members' memories, this is a 6-lot subdivision off of Dunstable Road, 314 Dunstable Road. This is the one that had the proposed and approved as a town road connecting into Westford, industrial land. So the houses are built. Most of the roadway and infrastructure is installed. As is typical, the developer is looking to sell lots.
Yep.
Per your definitive subdivision regulations and decision. These lots are under a covenant, which means that they cannot be sold. Closings are scheduled. That's the reason for the request. What's specifically being requested is to release 4 of the 6 lots. The reason for the holdback on 2 lots is that continues to provide the performance guarantee
Yes.
to
Yeah.
a substantial amount to cover the remaining work to be done. The other critical piece to understand here, just for full disclosure, is that while the planning board release of the covenant would allow the lots and houses presumably to be sold, there's a variety of other items that need to be resolved and finalized. For example, Title V approvals, completely outside of the planning board purview, but that's an ongoing issue that is completely separate and distinct from the planning board process. So, in my view, this is fairly routine. I think it's an item that you could approve this evening based upon its routineness.
Okay, well, I see no problem, as long as we still have some piece in there on which we have a hold, and 2 lots out of 6 sounds pretty good.
Why did the applicant not come to request this?
I'm not exactly sure. I know they submitted the written email request, and I know that they were on the agenda. I cannot answer that.
I'm not sure it's,
So, what was the covenant, the intent of the covenant? Did we approve the covenant?
The covenant is boilerplate.
Yeah.
Under definitive subdivision law, under state subdivision law, the applicant, the developer, has a choice as to what format they want to provide a surety bond or performance guarantee in. The easiest for all parties involved, which doesn't require putting a bond up or putting a passbook up, is a covenant.
Okay.
And so that's what this developer did, and the board obviously accepted that because it's as you heard tonight, a common theme is it's our most control. The board has direct control over that because the applicant has to come back to you to specifically request individual lots to be released.
And that was because to build the homes and then also the roadway?
it's the infrastructure
The
more than anything else.
Infrastructure.
The infrastructure, the drainage,
So
the
it's-
roadway.
so it's all done?
Everything is done with some exception of punch list items. So if the Title V issues were resolved, the town feels comfortable enough to allow tax-paying residents to move in because the roadway and infrastructure is to a point where it's safe and functioning. What isn't done, if you drive up there, is that the top coat, the top final 2 inches of pavement is not in, and that won't be in until the project is, close to 100%. There's punch list items such as trees and things of that nature, light poles.
Yeah, I get the feeling, if we have 2 of the 6 lots still in our clutch, I think we probably have plenty of,
Evan, this is something that newer members wouldn't be voting on, right?
Nope, anyone can vote on this.
I know
If you
nothing
want to
about
abstain,
Yeah,
that's
I know.
perfectly
I know
fine.
nothing about this project, and there was no information provided.
Sure, no, if you, yeah, if you want to, if you're more comfortable abstaining, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I
Yep,
you know,
Understood.
Agree.
I'm in the dark on it.
All right.
It
Yeah,
sounds
that
like it's
makes sense.
okay, but
That makes sense.
honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So do we have enough to vote on it?
I think we do. We've got Deirdre and Nancy out there,
And Tim?
and Tim.
Deirdre's new.
And this is just a bare majority.
Okay.
So anybody willing to move to grant the releases on 4 of the 6 lots?
I make a motion to grant release of lots 1, 2, 3, and 5 from the covenant on the subdivision on 31 Dunstable Road.
Second?
So,
Nancy, second.
I'm sorry, I have a question. The value of the remaining things is certainly less than the value of the 2 remaining lots, is that
Oh,
correct?
yeah.
Yes.
I guarantee you that.
Okay.
Yeah, those lots are worth some money. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've got 4.
Okay.
All right, that takes care of that. Now, we have one set of minutes from, oh, we're darn near up to date. Actually, I don't think we have a copy of them here, but
They were sent out.
they were sent out?
Yeah, on Friday.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And they're also on the, you can,
They're on the agenda
they're on
as
the
well.
agenda. You can
Yeah,
click
they're on the
agenda.
Click on it.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second
Second.
that.
You have motion to,
I made the motion.
okay.
Deirdre.
Anita, second by Deirdre. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstains? Okay. That's okay for the minutes.
Work session.
Next meeting will be the 8th, and we already have at least one agenda item for it. Any other business?
Work
Oh.
session.
Work session. Do we want to try another work session?
June 8th may be fairly light.
Yeah, but well, I think it's going to depend,
Yes.
where we do June 8th is going to depend a little bit on what Riverneck
Yep.
comes back with.
And don't we also have?
NEMCOG gonna be at this?
Riverneck too?
NEMCOG? Okay.
Are they joining us in this work session?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we meeting with the same guy about the zoning?
Yeah.
From
Jeff-
NEMCOG.
Jeff would come back,
Yeah, so we have to kind of schedule that with him.
yes.
So could we consider the 3rd Wednesday, the in-between Wednesday for our work session?
You mean the 15th?
Yes.
Sure.
Works for me. I mean, Wednesday nights are planning board nights.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Okay. Do we want to try, let's shoot for a work session. Experience seems to show that 7 o'clock's the preferred time, so let's stick with that. Any committee reports or anything?
No,
Okay.
but I'm wondering if if anyone else had a chance, if anyone had a chance to look at the list of things we were wanting to talk about at the work session. Specifically, I'm interested in maybe having a conversation about our non-official online presence and comments and guidelines. Is one topic, and I'm also still interested in hearing a brief explanation of what constitutes fire safety for a planning board decision. Like, we're learning quite a bit about the engineering decisions these last few weeks and on what they're stipulated. I'd just like a kind of very basic fire safety 101, what constitutes a fire safety approved plan.
Okay. That's fair enough. I don't know if we have anybody who can speak directly to it.
Yeah, I'll reach out to provide prevention.
Yeah, see, and, you know, if we have to move it to another time to fit
Yep.
their schedule, I'm sure we can do it. Okay.
On other committees, I attended the Conservation Committee meeting last night in regards to interpretations of acceptability of plant materials specific to 9 Acton Road, but it was also a kind of a general discussion of acceptability of cultivars for use in areas that are conservation sensitive. In terms of reestablishing wild areas, the preference is that random wild specimens be used. In other words, non-specific cultivars. In the case of conservation-sensitive landscaping areas, we left it at cultivars are acceptable, but they would like to see the justification of why specific cultivars are being selected. In other words, what traits does that
Nan,
specific
you've gone
cultivar
mute.
present?
There you go.
How did I get on mute? I'm not on mute here.
No, okay. I think you were leaning on
Okay.
your space bar.
I don't think so, but okay. Anyway, so we had been at an impasse on the 9 Acton Road landscape plan in that I was requiring specific cultivars and conservation. Katie's interpretation of conservation's feedback was that she could not use specific cultivars. So we've been doing some back and forth. The end result is, yes, specific cultivars can indeed be specified, and 9 Acton Road landscape plan is back to the landscaper to determine what those cultivars should. Conservation is requiring them to remove invasives and reestablish the wild area in the back of the property with a conservation plan, and a restoration plan that gets deeded into the condo association agreements. That I would have some concern on it in that this is a very, very long-term conservation preservation plan to get rid of the invasives, and the practicality of what the condo association is going to be signing up for. There is knotweed back there, and some of us know just how difficult it is to eradicate knotweed and the number of years of continuous attention that it takes to actually remove it. I don't know what else to say about it, except that we should definitely take a look at that as we draft our conditions for the approval of the property.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? Well, there is one motion.
Make a
Often appropriate this
motion
time.
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Got a second? In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.